This video is about an automatic dimensioning feature in COMOSYS for formwork or concrete structures. And we have several commands for automatic dimensioning, but this particular command, which I'm going to be talking about in this video, is for a controlled mechanism in which the user actually himself decides where the dimension lines will be, and then the program helps the user in creating automated dimensions along those lines. So here I have created a plan view of that model which you just saw with certain up-down limits, and my purpose is to create the formwork dimensions. And we can create dimensions of all the points in one go, but a lot of times we don't want that kind of automated dimensioning, because the people at the site might prefer the dimensioning to be done in a different way. Now, there's a command in COMOSYS in the dimensions menu which is called formwork dimension along a line. And this command is very useful because the user himself or herself decides on a line along which they want the dimensioning to take place. And the good thing about this is that this is not a one-time creation of dimensions. This becomes an automatic creation of dimensions every time the drawing is updated or reopened. And what will happen is that even if you go around and make changes in the model, when you will come back into the drawing, the dimensions will be updated along the lines which you had defined previously. Now, under the edit menu, we've got lots of different commands, but over here on the right hand side, we have commands for creating points and shapes, etc. And under the shapes menu, we can create lines, zigzag lines, polygons, rectangles, circles, ellipses, arcs, elliptic arcs, for instance. But what we're going to need for this particular command is the ability to create these lines in the drawings. So when we do that, let's say I want to create a line, and remember these are drawing side objects. So there are two types of objects in the COMOSYS drawing side. One are the objects which come from the model. So this viewport is created in the drawing, and everything you see in the viewport has come from the model. But then once again, within this viewport, you can also create dimensions which don't come from the model. Or for instance, you can write some text which doesn't come from the model. Or you can make some annotations which don't come from the model. Similarly, you can create these shapes which don't come from the model as well. You can create a cloud if you want, which doesn't come from the model. So there are two types of objects on the drawing side. There are model side objects and there are drawing side objects. So these shapes which I'm talking about are drawing side objects. You can go ahead and create as many as you want, whether inside the viewports or outside the viewports as well. But right now we'll be talking about this line object. So let me go ahead and click that. Now this line, obviously, as can be understood intuitively as well, it will ask us for 2 points. So if we can snap onto any 2 points, we can create a line. But if we want to snap to a free point somewhere over here, we will need to press the Alt key. And when we do that, then it snaps to that free point. And then let's say we want to snap to another free point, but we want to ensure that the line is horizontal and that it's not slightly inclined or anything. So if you want a horizontal line, we need to press the Control key. And if you want a vertical line, then we need to press the Shift key. These are the two. Otherwise, you can just click anywhere and the line will be inclined depending on what points you choose. But if you want to ensure that even if I snap slightly incorrectly, you want the line to be exactly horizontal, then you press the Control key. And if you want to ensure that you want to create a vertical line, then you press the Shift key. So right now, since I want a horizontal line, I will need to press the Control key and the Alt key, because I'm going to snap to any arbitrary point, not a snappable point. So let's say I snap somewhere over here. So I'll press the Control key and the Alt key. And if I click over here, automatically my line will be dropped to that point. I can continue selecting more points, but right now I'm just going to say right click. And when I do right click, this line appears. You can double click on this line and you can give it start and end offsets if you want. You can change the colors, you can change the line styles, etc. I've already created a few lines before opening up this drawing for you. Some lines over here, some lines over here, some lines over here. What you can also do is you can copy these lines around. So if I select this line and if I just start dragging it, it's going to basically move it. But if I were to select it and press the control key down while I'm dragging it, then what can happen is that it's going to actually make a copy of that line. So I can then basically keep the control key pressed and drag it down and make a copy of that. Now, the command which I want to show you is in the dimensions menu, and this is the one over here. And this is what it will do is it will dimension the formwork along a line. So how does this command work? Well, it works very simply. All you need to do is select the lines which you want to dimension. And I can press control and keep selecting all the lines which I want to dimension. So I'm going to select this one, this one, this one over here. Also these two horizontal lines which are going all throughout the structure all the way till the end. And let's say this line as well. So after having selected my lines, I also need to select the formwork object which needs to be dimensioned. And right now this has been union. This entire thing has been unioned. Although on the model side these are all separate objects, but on the drawing side they have been unioned into one object. So I'm going to select this formwork object as well, and as you can see, the whole thing lights up. The entire structure lights up, which has been union on this side. And after having selected my lines and my formwork, I basically just press this button, which is the dimension formwork along a line button. And when I do that, what it does is it creates these dimensions. So the first thing it does is it will delete the lines which we selected because those were temporary objects. And instead of those lines, what it did was, so for example, what it'll do is it'll go in there and it will create intersection of that line with the formwork object wherever it intersects. So this one was going through this over here. So it intersected at this point, at this point, at this point, at this point over here. So it basically creates all the dimensions which we want along that line. And the good thing about this command is that now it is actually not just, I mean, these are not just dummy dimensions which have been created, but these dimensions now will update as you modify the model. And the reason how that happens is if you go inside the thing and you see the macro, you see that there's a formwork dimension macro inside right now. And this macro will now run every time this model is opened. It has saved away those lines in its memory. And what it has done is, what it will do is every time you open this drawing, it will recreate these dimensions intelligently. So let's say if I were to go back into my model and create, say, another pillar over here. So then this dimension over here, which was running basically along that line, will now include those new dimensions as well. If I make a new hole over here, for example, then this dimension will include the dimensions of that hole as well. So this is a very powerful way of, the advantage of this command is that you set up the whole thing yourself. You set up the dimensioning rules yourself. You decide on where and how you want this complicated geometry, this complicated concrete formwork block to be dimensioned. And once you've made those decisions by actually inserting, like I said, dozens of lines at different points, so I could have created one over here and one over here and one over here and one going through this axis. So basically you decide where you want these lines to be. And then you just select those lines and the formwork and you just press this button and these dimensions are then created for you. And like I said, the beauty of this connection is that this will keep updating. This won't be, so if I were to go in and actually create a horizontal dimension myself, let's say I want to create a horizontal dimension myself like that, And if I give this dimension is just a dummy dimension. It won't be updated if anything happens to this model. Let's say I create a little indentation over here. Let's say I create a cut over here. So the next time I open this one, you won't see the dimensions of the cut. You'll need to go in and add those points yourself. Or let's say I have dimensioned that, and the cut moves to a new location. The dimension will still be showing the old location of the cut. But if you create those dimensions using the formwork dimensioning along a line command, then that becomes a different story, because now it gets turned into a macro along that line. And the advantage, like I said, of that would be that if you create a new cut, or you move an existing cut, or you add a column or a beam, or anything which basically along that line will create new dimensions or will have some modified dimensions, then every time you open this drawing, your drawing will be modified. So it's highly recommended that when you're doing complicated concrete work like this, you instead of creating these dimensions manually by hand, you always go to your edit menu, you go to your shapes, you create all these lines along your formwork, and after having created those lines, you just select them, you select your formwork object, you go to your dimensions menu, and you press this button, and now your intelligence will start behaving intelligently. So this is a very powerful command which everybody should use in COMOSYS, and it's going to really quicken your or make your concrete formwork general arrangement drawing work much faster. Now this command which automatically dimensions formwork along a line, or concrete blocks along a line, has another interesting feature as well, and I want to talk about that for a few minutes as well. So over here I have got some rebars in this plan view, as you can see, and this is the way normally you would go about dimensioning the rebars or annotating the rebars. You would show the range, and you would basically show the number of rebars and their diameters and their spacings, etc. This is the way you would normally go about it. But sometimes in certain particular projects, or when they have certain particular requirements, they want you to actually give the dimension of each and every rebar in a different way, and so that you want the rebars to be dimensioned one by one. So to do that, let's first delete these existing annotations of the rebars. So all I need to do is just select everything, press enter. This is on the fly filtering, as you know, which is extremely powerful in COMOSYS. Look at these objects. I'm looking for the text objects. So when I select the text objects, it says that your text objects are all rebar annotations. So let me double click on the rebar annotations. And as you can see, the rebar annotations have been selected from amongst this jungle of everything else as well. And I just press delete. And when I delete the rebar annotations, what happens is that it's going to come back to its original shape, the way it was imported from the model. So now let's see how we can use this dimension the formwork along a line command to help us with dimensioning both the formwork as well as the rebars. So let's create our lines first. So let me go to my shape and lines, and let me zoom in over there, and let's press the Alt key to snap to any free point. Go to the other side, press the Control and Alt to ensure that it's the horizontal line, and leave that. Then I can perhaps press the Alt key over here, and then go all the way down. And now this time press the Shift key and Alt key so that to ensure that it's a vertical line, and leave that. And similarly, maybe I can press the Alt key over here and press the Control. Let's go to the other side, press the Control Alt key so that ensure it's a horizontal line. And let's just leave it like that. I've created 3 lines, and let me now select the whole thing, because I want to select the formwork as well as the lines as well as the rebars. So wherever these lines are intersecting with the rebars, I've just created 3. I could have created more depending on my need. So now I'm going to go to my dimension menu and once again get back to this one and just press it. Now when we do that, we will see, and let me zoom in, we will see that what it has done is it has dimensioned the rebars very intelligently. So this was the first group over here, and then there's another one from here to here, and there's another one from here to here, and then another one from here, 2 bars, and then this last piece of 6 bars. So what it has done is it has dimensioned these first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars. It's written that the number is 5, and the distance from this end to this end is 1590. Then there is a gap of 443, and then there's another 5 bars with a total distance of 1773. These kinds of requirements are when the site actually wants exact dimensions of where it will start and where it will end. So they don't want these ranges only, the one we saw in the beginning of this video, but they want actually each and every set to be dimensioned on the formwork so that they can actually start placing the rebars at the exact locations. And then this one, for example, is there are 10 rebars with a total distance of 4090. Now, as you know, when we say when we normally place these rebars, we can have several options of having an exact. You can never have an exact spacing, because the distance along which the bar will need to go might not be an exact multiple of that spacing. So if your spacing is 200 but the distance is 990, there is no way you can divide 990 by 200 and get an exact number. So what the program will do is it offers you several options that you can either have the same spacing everywhere, but slightly less than the guideline spacing of 200, or you can have the first and the last spacing different but everything else 200. So those options are there. But what this command will do for you is it will create these exact dimensions, give you the spacings, give you the number of bars, give you the number of bars, the spacings once again, and once again on this side as well. So very quickly you will be able to dimension your rebars, just like you can dimension your formwork. You will also be able to dimension your rebars using the same dimension along a line command, and that really makes your work a lot easier if you want this kind of dimensioning. Like I said, in a lot of cases, you might actually be doing the other kind of dimensioning, which is that you basically give your ranges, and that's also possible. Of course, if you wanted, you could create a combination of the two. You could have both that kind of range dimensioning as well as these dimensions on the side, and that will be an even more flexible way of doing things.